Everyone remembers the day when Paul Schaefer, the name came to stand for something that was not simply a man, but a sealed valley of secrets in southern Chile, a place where a 20th century dictatorship, a German cult, and a small-town silence converged into real terror. This is the true story of Colonia Dignidad, a horror that unfolded between the 1960s and the post-Pinochet years, and the conspiracy that let it endure. In 1961, Schaefer, a charismatic former evangelical leader from Germany, led a group of followers into the remote hills near Parral and founded Colonia Dignidad. It was presented to the outside world as a model agricultural commune, German discipline, communal work, religious devotion. Inside, survivors later described a far darker regimen: children severed from families, sexual abuse concealed as discipline, a commander with absolute authority. Fear and rituals kept people inside. Escape meant exile and erasure. The compound's true darkness accelerated after 1973. Following General Pinochet's coup, Chile's secret police, DINA, needed secluded places to detain, interrogate, and disappear opponents. Colonia Dignidad offered exactly that: isolation, a hospital, underground bunkers, and a leader willing to cooperate. Manuel Contreras's DINA and Schaefer forged a practical alliance. Testimonies and declassified records show DINA agents using the colony's grounds as interrogation and holding sites. Detainees were moved there, sometimes never seen again. In return, the colony received protection, investigations stifled, questions diverted, and a degree of impunity that let its internal crimes continue unchallenged. The conspiracy was ugly and bureaucratic. Local authorities, certain elements of the Chilean military, and sympathetic German expatriates either colluded or turned a blind eye. Funds, supplies, and silence flowed both ways. The commune's veneer of religion and charity shielded illicit actions. International visitors were impressed by German thrift and order. Official inspections were superficial or obstructed. Children were kept in boarding schools under Schaefer's control. Dozens later recounted cruel punishments, coerced labor, and systematic sexual abuse. Victims who tried to report were disbelieved or intimidated. By the late 1990s, after Chile returned to democracy, survivors' voices grew louder. Investigations into disappearances from the Pinochet years pointed toward the compound. Families of the disappeared demanded answers. In 1997, pressure mounted when allegations of child abuse became public. Schaefer slipped across the border into Argentina, the commune's older secrecy fracturing into headlines and court files. International prosecutors and journalists pieced together how a communal experiment had become an adjunct of state repression. The unraveling was slow and partial. Schaefer was captured in Argentina in 2005 and extradited to Chile. Courts convicted him of child sexual abuse and other crimes. He remained a symbol of institutional failure until his death in prison in 2010. The compound, eventually renamed Villa Baviera, rebranded itself as a tourist site and sought normalcy. Yet many questions remained. Who else facilitated the abuses? Which bodies would never be found? And how many officials had helped bury the truth under bureaucratic mud? Colonia Dignidad's story is a documentary lesson in how horror can be engineered. A charismatic leader, the machinery of a repressive state, and the complacency or complicity of institutions at home and abroad. The conspiracy was not a single plot, but a web: secrecy protected by authority, cruelty protected by ideology, and crimes protected by geopolitics. Survivors, journalists, and human rights lawyers eventually exposed pieces of that web, but the echoes of the valley's screams linger. Today, the hills where Schaefer once walked are quieter. Tourists sip coffee where children once crept in fear. The legal victories and convictions brought some justice, but they could not resurrect the disappeared. The true horror of Colonia Dignidad is not just its acts of cruelty, but how many hands, military, political, and civilian, shaped the cover that let those